You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. It's Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. There you go. When the Iron Lady sings it, that's when you know it's official. The official Chris Voss Show is now happening. I didn't even do the fade on, and that was so official. Welcome to the big show, my family and friends. As always, remember the Chris Voss Show is the family that loves you but doesn't judge you. At least not as harshly as your mother-in-law, because she wanted her to marry Bob, not you. But that's not your problem now. That's hers. Anyway, guys, we bring you always the smartest people on the show. The people, the authors, the Pulitzer Prize winners, the CEOs, the billionaires, all the sort of people who live these incredible stories of life, or they're great storytellers. And as we always say on the show, I think I quoted it, or one of my personalities did, stories are the owner's manual to life. And that's the beauty of it. Be a story collector. That's what I recommended to my niece and nephew when they graduated high school and started joining their journey of life. I flunked second grade, people. I can't talk half the time. That's why I do this. But the stories are so important to collect. And those are the things that at the end of your life, you'll go, man, I have these really great stories. And that's why we enjoy films, videos, books, OnlyFans. We all love stories. And there you go. And so we always have amazing people on the show. And we have another gentleman today who's a prolific author of multiple books. I think you're going to be excited to learn about him if you're not already a fan. In the meantime, go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, YouTube.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss one, the Tickety-Tockety, and Chris Voss Facebook. .com. We have Nick Petrie on the show with us today, and he is the author of the latest book in the Peter Ash novel series, book number 8, that is coming out, The Price You Pay. It comes out February 6, 2024. If you're familiar with the Peter Ash series and Nick's work, I'm sure you're going to be really excited to see what he has to offer. And if you're new to his genre and everything that he does, you're going to be excited as well. Or else. I don't know what that means. I should just throw it in the show. Nick Petrie is a best-selling author of the award-winning Peter Ash series. He's a husband and father. He has worked as a roofer, carpenter, remodeling contractor, and freelance building inspector. He lives in Milwaukee, and you can go to his website at nickpetrie.com to see essays about writing and see his website, other than just reading his books. Nick, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me, Chris. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to have you as well. Give us your .coms. I think I threw one out, but any .coms you want people to find you on the interwebs.
Yeah, nickpetrie.com is the easiest place. There's links to my Twitter and Facebook. Twitter and Instagram are /NickPetrie_, and Facebook is nick.petrie.author.
There you go. So tell us about this latest book, The Price You Pay, number 8, I guess, in the series.
Number 8 is still kind of astonishing to me that I've written 8 books. So Peter Ash is a Marine Corps combat veteran still reckoning with the consequences of his years at war. His best friend is a retired career criminal named Lewis. In my latest book, The Price You Pay, Lewis's criminal past comes back to haunt him. He learns that a member of his old crew is in trouble and asks Peter to drive north into the teeth of a blizzard to rescue the man. They find blood in the snow and a smoldering cabin, and they know things are bad. When they learn that someone has stolen a dozen notebooks filled with the details of Lewis's former life, they realize the situation has gotten much, much worse.
There you go. And I'd like to clarify, it wasn't me this time. Wait, what?
You didn't do it?
No, I think I didn't.
You'd remember. Anyway. You'd remember, yeah.
I cannot confirm or deny, but he did owe me donuts, so there's that. No, so number 8 in your series. How many books do you have total?
I wrote 3 books I couldn't get published on the front end, which is not uncommon for fiction writers especially. So I've written 8 in the series, and I'm working on something that's actually a non-series book right now. That's what I'm chewing my way through as we speak.
There you go. So got some diversification going through the series there, huh?
the goal, so this is a series that you can read in any order. The books are designed to be read, as standalones. If you are a reader who really wants to go back to, the beginning and read them all in order, there is a bit of a character arc to follow. But I'm my goal is to have, these books really feel different from each other, be very distinct from each other. Anybody who's a big fiction reader has the experience of you pick up a book that you think you haven't read, and you get 5 or 10 or 15 chapters in, and you realize, holy crap, I've read this before. My books are not like that. They are all set in different locations. They all have distinct and different plot lines. There are only 3 characters that follow through the whole series. So you meet a lot of new people with every book as well. Mm-hmm. So my goal is to have it be a very different adventure with every book.
There you go. So tell us about your hero's journey. How did you grow up? You seem to have done a lot of blue-collar trades, and then how did you end up writing?
I always wanted to be a writer. I was the editor-in-chief of my high school newspaper, of all things. And my senior year, they realized early on that I was not good at news because I wasn't that good at facts. Mm-hmm. So I ended up as the editor because I was good at the people part. But my senior year, I wrote an 8-part soap opera, basically, featuring my friends and enemies in high school. and so
revenge? Revenge?
I refuse to confirm or deny. And so I would show up, the paper would come out, I'm walking down the hall, and people would say, oh, that was funny, or I really like this. And, that is how writers are made.
There you go. So you did all these different projects in between, right? A lot of
sure.
When did you really get serious about writing, or were you serious all along? You were just trying to find something that would stick.
I was serious all along. It's not an easy thing to learn to be a novelist. So I wrote a bunch of short stories. My undergraduate degree is actually in a double major in creative writing and American culture, and I'm actually using my college degree as we speak. Along the way, I got a master's in fine arts. So again, this is something I've wanted to do forever. It just takes a while to learn how to do it. There are people who publish a novel right out of college, but there are not very many of them, and I don't like them at all.
Mm. I mean, I think so would you say that maybe life experience is the thing that enriches a novelist and author and helps them tell better stories then? Absolutely. I mean, for me, you really have to be interested in the world, and you have to be interested in human beings, because that is what fiction is about. We are telling stories about the world, about people's experience through it. So to me, those are the 2 qualities: is that curiosity about the world and about how people work and the other people's problems. You can learn a lot about life. And I think as a writer, I'm really interested in showing what I have a worldview. I want my work to reflect that. The goal is to write something that's fast and fun, that keeps you turning the pages late at night under the covers with a flashlight, because that's really the best way to read a book. But I'm interested in writing about things too. So my first book is all about veterans and post-traumatic stress. My second book is about emerging technology. My third book is about, I wrote it as cannabis was becoming legal in Colorado. Oh. So it's about sort of what that new industry is like, and so on. So I find something in the world that I'm interested in, and I sort of find a way to turn it into an exciting story. So what kind of research did you undertake for this new novel? And the new book was not a super research heavy book. Part of it is just sort of researching what organized crime is like. So there's a bit of organized crime involved with this, but that's something I read about crime in general a lot. The biggest piece of research was really at the front end, which is because I write about a Marine Corps veteran with post-traumatic stress. So I am not a veteran myself, and I don't, to my knowledge, have post-traumatic stress. So it was finding my way into that mindset, and it was entirely accidental, because in my life as a building inspector, I had all of these customers coming home from the surge in Iraq who were vets. And I was interested in the progress of the war and all those things, but really seeing the struggles that these folks were having coming home from something that was probably would always be the most important and profound experience in their lives. So how do you move on from that? So that was sort of talking to vets about those experiences and about post-traumatic stress, and reading about post-traumatic stress was sort of the beginning
of my journey into Peter Ash. And the book sort of follows Peter's path through his life from being, in the first book, he's essentially homeless because he can't be inside for more than 15 minutes. His post-traumatic stress is claustrophobia.
Wow.
To the second book, he's getting a little better, and he improves as we go along. So it's also a little bit of a sort of primer for people who are struggling. Sort of, here are the things that work to help you through post-traumatic stress.
So would you say Peter Ash is kind of an homage to those veterans, and then of course kind of a vision or a inspiration that there's another side, there's a way to come out of it?
Absolutely. I mean, we all have our struggles, right? And everybody's struggle looks differently. And to me, I think that's one of my core interests in life is how do you face the adversity in your own life and find your way through it, around it, over it. And so that's really what these stories are about. And I mean, I'm interested in that in my own life. So I put it on the page.
How do you feel that Peter Ash's character has developed in this book, or has it developed in this book? Maybe is a good question too, as opposed to the other books. Is there maybe some new nuances or anything that he's?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the previous book, Peter has a best friend named Lewis, and Lewis is a career criminal, or semi-retired, let's say. And Lewis is the guy that shows up. Peter refers to him often as the most dangerous man he's ever met. And Lewis is the guy who shows up when Peter is really in deep doo-doo. And so in this book, I wanted to turn the tables. I wanted this to be more of a Lewis book. And so Lewis's criminal past comes back to haunt him, and he turns to Peter for help. And so we get actually quite a bit more about Lewis and his past. What is it, what did it mean to be a career criminal? What was his approach to it? We get to actually see him at work. And we see Peter in this more supportive role. And also the women in their lives are also featured in this. So we really get to see other facets of both of these characters. Mm-hmm. It was one of the challenges of writing a long-running series now, right? This is book number 8, is to keep finding new angles to approach it, to keep entertaining myself and then hopefully entertaining my audience.
There you go. I was going to ask you that. Every book has got unique challenges, and some of the challenges that you face. Were there other challenges you faced as you wrote the book?
This book, so I published 7 books in 7 years, writing a book a year. And then this book, I got partway into a book, and I ended up throwing out basically 5 months worth of work. Oh, wow. Because it just was not going where it needed to go. And so I just sort of flushed it all and started from scratch. And I'd never done that before. I'd never had that experience. Wow. And I ended up blowing my deadline by a long way, which was also it's not what a writer dreams of, let's just say.
Or a publisher.
Or a publisher, yes, exactly. But they were very kind to me because they could see that I was more distressed than I think they were. So, but talking about the challenges that we all face, right? Yeah. For writers, it's how do you get the work done and turn in something that you're proud of by deadline? And that was really the challenge for me with this book.
There you go. Quality is sometimes more important than speed.
It's what I heard over and over again from booksellers and editors, which is we'd rather have a good book.
Yeah.
And actually, I think this may be my best book. I had more time on it. I took more care with it, and I'm trying some new things. It's I always sort of hate every book as I write it, and then it comes the final edits, and it's sort of like, oh, this actually isn't so bad. Like this is pretty good.
You kind of start seeing it probably from a higher view, sort of bigger picture maybe at that point, because you're not lost in the minutia.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. I've had that feeling before. Then the editors come in and you hand them 50,000 words and they hand back a page and they go, the rest of shit. Now start over. That's my editor joke. So since its release, it hasn't been released yet. I'm not going to ask that question. Clearly, I'm pulling some stock questions here. Can you share any interesting scenes that are in this story? I know one of the problems with novels, we can't talk about the middle and the ending, but are there any scenarios maybe that you can tease out, or scenes maybe that you had fun writing?
Oh, I had fun writing the whole book, actually. I try to go back and forth between sort of moments of emotional intensity and then moments of action and violence. One of the things I'm trying to do is to sort of really show the consequences of violence. But I think the piece of it that I'm the most proud of is the very beginning, So Peter Ash is in bed. It's the middle of the night in the middle of winter, and he hears a noise. And so he unwinds himself from his girlfriend, June Cassidy, grabs the gun that he keeps in his nightstand, threads on a silencer because, if it gets messy, you don't want to wake the neighbors.
Or his girlfriend, yeah.
Yeah, for that matter. And then so he makes his way carefully, quietly downstairs, expecting to find somebody who's broken into his house. But it's his friend Lewis, who at 4:00 in the morning is making a pot of coffee and a stack of peanut butter sandwiches. And he has a friend who's in trouble, and he wants Peter's help. Peter, of course, signs on because Lewis has been there for him many, many times.
Yeah.
And he says, "What do I need to do?" And Lewis says, "Dress warm, leave your phone, and bring your gun." And that's sort of the setup for the whole thing. And then they drive north into this blizzard, and that's how the adventure begins.
Bring your gun, dress warm. That's Fridays around here.
Sure.
There you go. So yeah, I would say though, it's a good thing I don't know, I probably would have shot the guy because you're like, hey man, you're in my peanut butter. No one gets in my peanut butter. I don't know. That's the only joke I had for that. So what advice would you give to aspiring authors in writing mysteries or novels or even fiction or nonfiction?
Well, I think the most important thing is to find somebody that find something that you are really interested in, because it's a long haul.
Yeah.
It's for most people, it's years and years to write that first book, because you also probably have a full-time job. Maybe you've got some kids who want a little attention. It has to be something that you are, curious enough about that will pull you through. I think it's in some circles, people talk about finding the niche in the market or writing the next whatever, right? Right after Harry Potter, showed up, everybody's, I'm going to write the next, whatever. And to me, you're never going to time that right.
Yeah.
A, and B, write what's interesting to you, what's compelling to you. The other thing is that I think a lot of people get really worked up about finding an agent and getting published and all of those things. And to me, the most important thing is to write a really good book. If you write a good book, they will knock down your door to come get you. Publishing wants the next great book. They want the next great author. Agents are lining up to have, talented people. So that is really the secret to having a life in the book world, is to be a good writer, is to work hard and revise, read stuff that is better than you. So that's how you learn, right? Is by reading better writers than yourself. If all you read are comic books, you're never gonna, write a national bestseller.
What if I'm just reading the articles in Playboy? Does that?
Well, that's a whole separate thing.
Oh, it's more a graphic novel, probably.
No, those aren't the articles. I think you're getting confused about the pictures versus the article.
The ones where you turn them this way? I don't know what that means. So there you go. That's a centerfold for you listening in the audience. So you bring that to, you ran into my next question. You're just answering most of my questions for me. So you're being a great guest. What are some of the books that you enjoy reading, or genres that you like reading, that kind of inspire you and inspired the Peter Ash series? I
read a lot of crime. I read mysteries. I don't read as many kind of military thrillers, although I have a couple of friends who write that stuff, who are, I think, really talented. There's a guy named Brad Taylor whose work I like. There's a guy named Mark Graney who writes the Gray Man books. I think he is somebody everybody knows. Yeah, he's also just a great dude.
Yeah.
There's a guy named Don Bentley who writes his own stuff. He's written Tom Clancy books. He's Tom Clancy.
We've had him on as well, by the way. We've had everybody on but Tom Clancy.
I did, but he's passed away, so
that's why. Yeah, that's obvious reason.
Yeah, so I read those guys, but I read a lot of nonfiction. I'm reading right now. Let me see if I can dig it out here. A book called The Tiger, which is 13 or 14 years old here. Here, I'm doing a bad job with my camera.
There you go.
There we go.
There we go. Vengeance to Survival.
So it's about Siberian tigers that become man-eaters. And it's beautifully written. So I haven't read a lot of nonfiction over the years, but I've sort of fallen into some of that and really enjoying that kind of stuff. So I read anything that's well written. My wife reads a lot of, I guess, what used to be called women's fiction. I'm not sure what it's called now, upmarket fiction. And she will, say, hey, this thing is really good. And again, I have female characters, and so it helps me to learn how women write about women, right? So it's one of the downsides of being a full-time writer is that there's no time off. Reading used to be my time off, and now it's all work.
But it's a work of love, right?
It is a work of love.
Yeah, it's a work that's fun and enjoyable to yourself. What's your writing routine, if you don't mind me asking? Do you have a daily routine?
Oh, I do. I like a regular life. So I wake up when I wake up. I go for a walk or a run. I actually started meditating because I was part of my research into post-traumatic stress. Meditation is one of the things that actually the Army is having soldiers do to help mitigate that. So I started doing that just to sort of help mitigate the deadline pressure. So I meditate every morning, and then I make my breakfast and I pour a cup of coffee and I carry it into the office, and then the day begins. And I work sort of a 9 to 5.
Okay, so you sit down at the thing and work a 8-hour job and make sure you get your time in. And do you do weekends or are those optional?
It depends. When I'm trying to get something going, I'll work 7 days a week, just sort of trying to sort of stay inside of this story. But that I can only do that for so long, and then I need a couple of days to just be a vegetable. But it's writing a book a year is a challenge for sure, and there's not a lot of room for other stuff.
Plus, you guys, I don't think you guys write for a full year because there's that lead time that the publishers need, which is quite significant, right?
Oh yeah,
you guys are writing for maybe 6 months or something like that.
For me, it's about. Thank you very much.
I hit the space bar. You just sounded like a great answer.
For me, it's about 8 months. It is a typical book. But then there's revision, there's, going on book tour and doing the promotion stuff. I mean, it all takes time. I have to do my taxes and blah, blah, blah. I mean, life gets in the way. Yeah.
There you go. This has been really interesting, Nick. Any further thoughts or questions maybe I should have asked you about the book?
I don't know. I'm kind of looking at my little notes here. I don't know. I appreciate the interest for sure, and it's been a great conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been interesting to hear, your love of your work and how you do it. It's a labor of love, and I thought one thing I thought was interesting is you said that it really has to be appealing to you first before. And evidently you have found a way where what's appealing to you is appealing to a broad range of audience. So I love that.
I think part of that is just dumb luck. It's that the things that I'm interested in are things that other people happen to be interested in. I mean, I know very talented writers who are interested in a certain kind of story or a certain kind of genre that are just never going to see a wide audience because it's such a funky little niche. But they're writing what's true to them, which is really, I think, what everybody should do.
There you go. Is it the characters that intrigue us? Is it the reflection of the characters on our own lives? When I watch Die Hard, I dream that I could be, I could do that in a second. Defend my family and I walk around on glass, kick everyone's ass. There's a fantasy there, I suppose, with the characters. But then characters are also interesting in themselves, especially their dichotomies, their conflicts of what they're going through, how they're trying to resolve stuff. It's that whole experience, I think, that we like characters for.
Sure, and it's both an escape and an immersion in a world that is not our own, right? And we all our lives are all challenging and complicated, and we're all looking for an escape from that from time to time. And for me, character is the foundation of the story. It needs to be fast and exciting and interesting. But if you don't care about the characters, you don't care about what happens to them, right? There's if there's a bomb under the chair and you don't give a damn about the guy sitting in the chair, who cares if the bomb goes off, right? So to me, these have to be people that you come to care about. I had this great, I know you've got the next thing to do here, but
we're here as long as we need.
All right,
please don't rush.
I was in I did a charity book club deal years back, and I was in a very nice house with 20 seriously smart, ambitious, professional women talking about my book. And the best moment for me was when they started to argue with each other about what Peter Ash would or wouldn't do in a certain circumstance, right? And so to me, that's the holy grail. Yeah. When that character comes alive to a reader, in that way. And I that's something that I pay a lot of attention to, and I try really hard to get all those characters right, to make them feel distinct and interesting and like somebody that you would know and or maybe want to be, right? There is this aspirational piece to this kind of fiction.
There you go. The characters come alive through what you've written, and you're designing them as the characters and stuff. We've had a lot of authors that have been on the show, like yourself, that have series or multiple series, and it's funny, they'll get feedback from their audience that sometimes will surprise them. Like one of my authors has appeared quite a few times. She has got 60 plus books. She said one time, she wrote about this guy who was I think he's a drinking detective, and it's a detective genre with the Scotch or whatever, But at one point she had someone write her and say, "Do you realize that your main character is an alcoholic?" And she as the author went, "Holy shit.
Huh.
They're right." He's an alcoholic. So, it's interesting to me. I love the whole genre and the experience of it, and people bringing characters to life. I don't have that ability, so I love it. The only thing I can write about is business stuff. We burned $30,000 in the books today. There's a story, but it's funner when you guys are able to go in as novelists and just design the set, design the characters, and you guys can imagine this whole world and how it interacts, and then you can do it with multiple books, and the creativity is just astounding, I think.
I appreciate it, and I am definitely in awe of other writers who do that.
Yeah.
There was I had a fascinating anecdote that fled because, I'm in my 50s, and so my brain, is like Swiss cheese sometimes, but...
You know what I mean, man? There's so many times I'll segue, and I'm heading down the path to something on the segue, and I do another segue, and I'm like, yeah, you did one too many segues, Chris. You just lost it. Sometimes it comes back to me, but yeah.
I remembered. You were talking about the things that your readers surprising you, and I wrote this first book called The Drifters, the first in the series, about a veteran of post-traumatic stress, and I never thought the book would get published, so. I never really thought anybody would read it. And then it got picked up by a major publisher, and it was, 2 or 3 weeks before publication date. And I kind of had a panic attack. I was like, oh my God, people are going to read this. And am I going to be a fake or I'm very open about the fact that I'm not a veteran. I didn't serve overseas. The book has an afterword kind of all about that piece of it. But the response from readers has been super gratifying. That first book tour, I was at a library event, and these two women in their 70s came up to me. They made a point to be last in line, and they came up to say, our husbands were both in Vietnam. Mm-hmm. They were sisters. Their husbands were both in Vietnam, mm-hmm. and your book helped us understand how to talk to our husbands about the war.
Oh, wow.
And like that kind of stuff. And I get messages like that all the time that it wasn't my personal experience, but I've talked to so many people that I was able to somehow evoke this experience for people. And the other crazy thing that happens is I get, people will send me like Facebook messages. And the last one was a guy in his full Marine Corps dress uniform with his wife and his 3 kids. Mm-hmm. Kids are all under the age of, 9 or 10. And the message was, until I read The Drifter, I thought I was crazy. I spent many nights with my gun in my mouth trying to get the courage to kill myself. Then I read your book and I realized I just have post-traumatic stress. Wow. And now, I've taken these steps and blah, blah, blah. And I get that stuff on a regular basis. And it's never what I expected I'm trying to write a fun book that you want to turn the pages.
Yeah.
But that there's this other piece of it has really added a lot to the meaning for me personally of the work I do.
There you go. And impacting our veterans. And, we've had a lot of people on, scientists and everybody else, who talked about PSTD and, more support we can give to veterans. But it's great that it touches people in so many different ways. It's kind of funny. I think books are a little bit like music or a song lyrics. You can write Stairway to Heaven and people, interpret that 50 trillion ways and put their own spin on stuff. You might have a few times where people tell you something about the book and you're like, what?
Yeah, where'd that come from?
Yeah. I don't remember that. I don't remember writing that scene in the book or, the flavor of the character or something. But, but that's why we always say stories are the owner's manual to life. It's interesting how when we tell stories, they give us the lessons to deal, and they kind of give us almost a mirror, if you will, where we can look at life and we can go, okay, well, this is this is that, and this affects me. There's times I've talked about things that I thought, this is kind of selfish. No one really gives a shit about what my opinion is on anything, which is actually true, but and people say, hey, that had an impact on me, that I cried over that, or it changed my life because you shared your stupid idiot story. But somehow in all your idiocy, I found something that meant something. So that's the story of my life.
I love that quote so much, I just had to write it down. And I think that's really true. The thing about music and fiction especially, I think, are so intimate, right? That people experience that inside their own head. I mean, actually, a podcast, I think, is sort of the same way.
Yeah.
If they're doing their job or going for a walk and listening to something, I mean, to be right there in somebody's head, it's very intimate. It's just, I find that to be such an interesting experience.
I'm in your head, people. For 16 years. I'm one of your personalities. No, I have 8. So this has been a wonderful discussion, Nick. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Give us your final pitch out on the book and tell people where they can pick it up, any.com, so that they can go to get to know you better.
You betcha. So the book is called The Price You Pay, and it is the 8th book in the Peter Ash series. You can certainly read it as a standalone. If this is your first Peter Ash book, go for it. You can also go back to the beginning to a book called The Drifter. You can find me at nickpetrie.com. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram, _NickPetrie_, and nick.petrie.author on Facebook.
There you go. Folks, order up wherever fine books are sold. Stay away those alleyway bookstores. You might get mugged or need a tetanus shot. The book is entitled The Price You Pay, a Peter Ash novel, number 8 in the series. It comes out February 6th, 2024. Oh my God, we're in 2024 already.
That's insane, right?
Yeah, we have a big YouTube channel, so there'll be some people see this 10 years from now and be like, it's not 2024 anymore. They'll leave a comment that says that. Nick, thank you very much for coming to the show. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate your time. It's been a blast.
There you go. And thanks to my audience for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, youtube.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss. Subscribe to the big LinkedIn newsletter, the 130,000 group on LinkedIn, and all the other silly stuff I do on the internet. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe. And we'll see you guys next time.